Well, you saw it in the bulletin just a few moments ago. The Speaker of the House of Commons gave a warning today that words have consequences. His comments were taken as a criticism of Boris Johnson after the Prime Minister accused Keir Starmer of not prosecuting Jimmy Savile when the Labour leader was in charge of public prosecutions. 24 hours ago, protesters surrounded Sir Keir in Westminster and he had to be led away for his own safety. Some of the protesters shouted "pedo protector" at Starmer, and at least one Tory MP suggested a link between that slur and the PM's words last week. Well, joining me now, the GBNews presenter and much else besides, Nigel Farage, who has been on the receiving end of, well, I was going to say violent protest. That's not an unreasonable thing to say, is it, Nigel?
No, I had years of it. And I've been warning MPs for a long, long time. They've got to start rethinking their security. The appalling David Amess murder highlights that. But at the moment, you have public figures just walking around the streets of Westminster without any protection at all. And there's an argument here that says, well, we don't want our elected representatives to be taken away from the public. But the only way that I could meet the public was by having people with me that were there for protection. And one of the mind-boggling things about yesterday with Keir Starmer is why was he walking openly in a street like that? He could have easily walked through Portcullis House. There is a tunnel underneath that goes to the Palace of Westminster. What was he doing? Now, of course, the conspiracy theories all say it was a set-up. He was looking for the aggro. They would try.
It'd be nice weather, Nigel.
Well, it could be. And it was a nice day, too. But, one lesson I learned from all of this is that you avoid conflict. You don't seek conflict out. And for the last 3 or 4 weeks, there have been gangs of people in Westminster, in Parliament Square, quite aggressive, shouting. Yesterday afternoon, a crowd had just been addressed by none other than Piers Corbyn. I mean, what on earth, if we take the innocent explanation for this, what on earth was Starmer? What on earth were his security team thinking of him walking through?
It's been going on for months. I mean, I remember an interview you did we had Tom Harwood in an hour ago, our political correspondent. You were interviewing Tom in Parliament Square months ago.
Yes.
And the noises off were turning the air blue then, with similar sentiments, and it wasn't just one thing, it was several things. Sarah Elliott from Republicans Overseas is alongside us, and I mean, it would be silly not to ask you about the American perspective on this. I mean, we're left with an impression here, and obviously Nigel knows American politics as well, that in America things are done differently. There's far less access that the public enjoy to their politicians. Is that true?
I mean, I think just because of the sheer scale of the country, that is true to some degree. But we have been openly assembling all throughout the pandemic and to this day, even through the winter and the COVID restrictions. So Americans have, they enjoy their free speech, they protest, they also peacefully assemble with their politicians. But there is politicians in America do not have the protection either. They walk out freely. And actually, to access congressional office buildings, you just go through a security detector. You don't have to have a meeting arranged. It's very much the people's house. So they do also have concerns about safety.
Nigel, just to go back to that footage from yesterday, I wanted to deconstruct it for our viewers. I wanted to show exactly what was said, second by second. We've not had the technical wherewithal to do that, but we can say it verbally, can't we? It wasn't just about pedo protection. No. That was one element of a much wider script. There was talk of Julian Assange, Magna Carta, lots about vaccines.
New World Order, many other things. I mean, this whole thing's very odd. I think using the Jimmy Savile line was very inappropriate of Boris Johnson in the context of what was going on in the House of Commons that day. Now, had it been a furious Prime Minister's questions, it's the sort of stuff that gets chucked back and forth, and probably nobody would have noticed. So it was inappropriate of Johnson to use it. But the thought that it's an outrage, the thought that it's some terrible slur, the thought that the Speaker, who I think generally is doing a brilliant job, certainly compared to the last chap, I must say, but the thought that the Speaker, makes a statement on this and words have consequences, and quite frankly, that Radio 4's Today programme, paint this out this morning as being this most dreadful thing that has directly led to violent attacks. There is a huge amount of confected outrage going on here. And I'm going to say this. I was in the car coming to London early this morning, and I was hopping between Radio 4 and the breakfast show here on GB News, and I thought, Tom Harwood, actually got it absolutely right when he made the point of all the people that were there massing around Starmer. You know, Jimmy Savile and Pedo Protector was a tiny part of it. So I know the Prime Minister is beleaguered. I know when things are against you, everything seems to be against you. But frankly, was it right to use Jimmy Savile in the context he did? No. Is it a slur? Is it an outrage? Should he apologise? Should the BBC be having kittens? And should the Speaker of the House of Commons have made a statement? No, no, no and no.
You've unpacked it beautifully, and I'm sure you'll be doing so from 7 with your show as well,
Do my
Nigel.
best.
Thanks very much indeed for
Thank
coming
you.
in. Thanks a lot.